Welcome to Week 7, Chapter 12, Protection Mechanisms. Learning objectives for this week include to discuss the various access control approaches, various types of firewalls, intrusion detection and prevention systems, and cryptography. Let's discuss protection mechanisms. Technical controls alone cannot secure the IT environment. You require people, policy, and protection. As you look at the sphere of security, note that the information is in the center, half the cells filled up with people, and the other with systems, networks, and the internet. The core to protecting the information is security planning, education and training, policy and law, as well as encryption, backups, and access controls. A successful access control approach always incorporates all four of the processes listed. There are three types of authentication: something you know, something you have, and something you can produce. The current industry best practice is for all passwords to have a minimum length of 10 characters and contain at least one uppercase letter, one lowercase letter, one number, and one system acceptable special character, which of course requires the system to be case sensitive. Here you see a table of password power. Note the password length on the left to the estimated time to crack on the right. Something a person has can be a card, a key, or a token, and those tokens can be either synchronous or asynchronous. Here you see a few forms of access control tokens. Something a person can produce is normally associated to biometrics, such as a fingerprint, palm print, hand geometry, facial recognition, and iris or retinal print. Among all possible biometrics, only 3 human characteristics are usually considered truly unique. Those are the fingerprints, the retina of the eye, and the iris of the eye, which is the random pattern of features found in the iris, such as freckles, pits, striations, and vascular. Note that biometric technologies are generally evaluated according to 3 basic criteria: a false reject rate or type 1 error, the false accept rate, type 2 error, and the crossover error rate or CER. Note the recognition characteristics that we spoke about. Ranking of biometric effectiveness and acceptance is shown in this table. Managing network security. The firewall may be a separate computer system, a service running on an existing router or server, or a separate network containing a number of supporting devices. While most firewalls are an amalgamation of various options, services, and capabilities, most are associated with one of the basic categories or types of firewalls. Packet filtering firewalls can be selectively filtered packets based on the values in the packet header, accepting or rejecting packets as needed. This visual description provides the flow of data in a packet filtering firewall. Here's an example of packet filtering rule sets. An application layer proxy firewall, on the other hand, provides both proxy and firewall services. For the Stateful Packet Inspection Firewall, or SPI firewall, if it receives an incoming packet that it cannot match in a state table, it will default to performing traditional packet filtering against its rule base. and if the packet is allowed and becomes a conversation, the SPI firewall updates its state table with that information. Both SPI firewalls and application-level proxy firewalls are considered examples of dynamic packet filtering firewalls. With the proper configuration, unified threat management devices are even able to drill down into the protocol layers and examine application-specific data, encrypted, compressed, and/or encoded data. This is commonly referred to as a deep packet inspection, or DPI. Next generation firewall functions are so similar to those of UTM devices that the difference may lie only in the vendor's description. In the single bastion host architecture, a single device configured to filter packets serves as the sole security point between two networks and unfortunately represents a rich target for external attacks. Here you see the illustration of a dual-homed host firewall. Note the flow of information. A related approach called port address translation, or PAT, converts a single real, valid external IP address to special ranges of internal IP addresses. That is, a one-to-many approach in which one address is mapped dynamically to a range of internal addresses by adding a unique port number when traffic leaves the private network and is placed on the public network. Note that NAT and PAT use special non-routable addresses, and they consist of 3 different ranges as shown. The screened host architecture approach allows the router to screen packets to minimize the network traffic and load on the internal proxy, while the proxy examines an application layer protocol, such as HTTP, and it performs the proxy services. Here's an illustration of the screened host firewall. Functionally, the difference between the screened host architecture and screened subnet architecture is the addition of packet filtering behind the bastion host or hosts, which provides more security and restricts access to internal hosts only to traffic approved in the internal or interior firewall device's rule set. Note that there are first general model and second general models for screened subnet architecture. This illustration shows the screened subnet, or DMZ. As a CISO, you may be asked to select the right firewall for your organization. Here are some of the questions you should be asking when evaluating a firewall that you would want to include in a point paper or white paper to your leadership to make a decision on the selection of the firewall. The most common application of a content filter is the restriction of access to websites with material that is not business related. In practice, configuring firewall rule sets can be something of a nightmare. Each firewall rule must be carefully crafted, placed into the list in the proper sequence, debugged, and tested. Firewalls are limited by the constraints of the programming and rule sets in the following ways. They are not creative and cannot make sense of human actions. They deal strictly with defined patterns. And they are computers, so they're subject to programming errors and flaws in rule sets and other inherent vulnerabilities that come from human interaction. Firewalls are designed to function within the limits of hardware capacity and designed, implemented, configured, and operated by people. There are also a number of administrative challenges to operation of a firewall. Training is primary. Each brand of firewall is different, therefore its uniqueness can bring administrative challenges. Responsibility. Who exactly in the IT department is responsible? Or is the responsibility outside of the IT department? And administration. Being a firewall administrator for any organization becomes a full-time job. Here lists some of the best practices for firewall use. Note the allowance of all traffic from the trusted network to go out. Intrusion detection and prevention systems, IDS and IPS. Intrusion detection and prevention systems, also known as IDPS, has the capability to both detect and prevent. The term IDPS is generally used to describe the devices or the applications. When an IDPS detects a violation, it activates an alarm. This can be audible, visible, or it can be a silent alarm that sends a message to a monitoring entity. These systems, IDPSs, are either network-based to protect network information assets, or they are host-based to protect servers or host information assets. Here's a visual example of an IDPS. Unless the IDPS is precisely configured, benign actions can cause a large volume of false alarms. During times of routine operation, the system will provide alerting for only a few urgent reasons and will provide recording only for exceptions. The network-based IDPS looks for patterns of network traffic. The network IDPSs must match known and unknown attack strategies against their knowledge base to determine whether an attack has occurred. The problem with signature-based IDPSs is that the signatures must be continually updated. As a new attack strategy emerges, a new signature must be produced. Another weakness of this method is the time frame over which attacks occur. The advantage of an anomaly-based IDPS is that the system is able to detect new types of attacks as it looks for any type of abnormal activity. Unfortunately, these IDPSs require significant processing capacity, as they must constantly attempt to match activity to the baseline. In addition, they may not detect a minor change to the system variables and may generate many false positive warnings. A properly configured IDPS can translate a security alert into different types of notifications, while a poorly configured IDPS may yield only noise. A valuable tool in managing an IDPS is the Consolidated Enterprise Manager software that allows the security professional to collect data from multiple host and network-based IDPSs, and then look for patterns across systems and subnetworks, collecting responses from all IDPSs used to identify cross-system probes and intrusions. Wireless network protection. The size of the wireless network's footprint depends on the amount of power the transmitter-receiver wireless access point emits. Wireless access points are also called WAPs or WAPs. Note the two most common encryption protocols used to secure wireless networks are Wired Equivalent Privacy, or WEP, and Wi-Fi Protected Access, or WPA. Wired Equivalent Privacy, or WEP, has several fundamental cryptological flaws. This resulted in vulnerabilities that can be exploited, and eventually led to its replacement by WPA. WPA is an industry standard created by the Wi-Fi Alliance. Both WPA and WPA2 can use an IEEE 802.1x authentication server. WiMAX, developed as part of the IEEE 802.16 standard, is a certification mark or stamp of approval that stands for Worldwide Interoperability for Microwave Access, or WiMAX. Bluetooth in discoverable mode, devices can be easily accessed, but in non-discoverable mode, the device is susceptible to access by other devices that have connected with it in the past. Note the range is approximately 30 feet. As Bluetooth does not authenticate connections, the way to secure Bluetooth-enabled devices is to turn off Bluetooth when you do not intend to use it, and do not accept an incoming communication pairing unless you are positive of who you're connecting with. One of the first management requirements is to regulate the size of the wireless network footprint by adjusting the placement and the strength of the wireless access points. Conscientious administrators will have several informational websites bookmarked, and they frequently browse for new vulnerabilities, recent conquests, and favorite assault techniques. Scanning tools collect the information that an attacker needs to succeed. A port is a network channel or a connection point in a data communication system. Well-known ports are those from 0 through 1023. Registered ports are those from 1024 through 49151. And dynamic and private ports are those from 49152 through 65535. Here you see a table of commonly used port numbers and their description. Vulnerability scanners identify exposed usernames and groups, show open network shares, and expose configuration problems and other server vulnerabilities. A packet sniffer must be connected directly to the local network from an internal location. Tap and trace applications are another set of technologies that deploy IDPS technology that detects individuals who are intruding into the network. The security manager should develop a program using in-house resources, contractors, or an outsourced service provider to periodically scan the network and systems for vulnerabilities with the same tools that a typical hacker might use. While scanning and analysis tools are popular, there are some drawbacks to using them as shown here. Concerning log data, the data is referred to generally as log files or logs, and is commonly used to audit the system's performance and usage by authorized and unauthorized users as well. Log data categories and types of data are shown here in 2 columns. And here those log categories and types of data are continued. Log generation typically requires activating logging on the various servers and defining where to store logging data, whether it's locally or otherwise. Note the functions provided for interpreting data from log generation, log parsing, event filtering, and event aggregation. Collectively, systems of this type are known as Security Event Information Management, or SEIM systems. Note the general suggestions for managing logs. They include making sure the data stores can handle the amount of data the logs generate. Logs can generate a lot of server space. That rotate those logs when unlimited data is not available. Archiving, securing, and destruction of logs. Cryptography. Encryption is the process of converting an original message into a form that it cannot be easily understood by an unauthorized individual. Note the encryption definitions: algorithm, cipher, ciphertext, or cryptogram. Also, cryptosystems, the cipher, end-cipher, and key. Key space, plain text, steganography, and work factor. These definitions are important, so please take the time to review them. Understanding the definitions and terms will help you as you learn cryptography. In encryption, the most commonly used algorithms include three functions: substitution, transposition, and XOR or XOR. The transposition cipher or permutation cipher simply rearranges the values within a block to create a ciphertext. If you've never worked with logic gates, the XOR function is shown in this slide. Note that the XOR cipher conversion takes the bit stream and subjects it to the Boolean XOR function against some other data stream, typically called a key stream. In the book or running key cipher, the key relies on two components: knowing which book to use and having a list of codes representing the page number, line number, and word number of the plain text word. In symmetric encryption, the same key, a secret key, is used to encrypt and decrypt the message. The challenge in symmetric key encryption is getting a copy of the key to the receiver. This process must be conducted out of band to avoid interception. Here's a graphical view of symmetric encryption. Notice it's one key, the secret key, that is exchanged between the originator and the user out of band. The problem with asymmetric encryption is that it requires a total of 4 keys to hold a single conversation between two parties, and that number of keys grows geometrically as parties are added to the conversation. Here's a visual of an asymmetric public key encryption between two people. Digital signatures. Non-repudiation from our first weeks of class is the foundation of digital signatures. Along with a digital signature, note that a digital certificate is an electronic document that's similar to a digital signature and attached to a file certifying that the file is from the originator, and that a certificate authority is the agency that manages the issuance of those certificates. Using Internet options from Internet Explorer, you can click on Content, Certificates, and see the certificates associated. Public key infrastructure, PKI, can be implemented in a variety of ways. Common implementations of PKI include systems that issue digital certificates to users and servers, systems with computer key values to be included in digital certificates, tools for managing user enrollment, key generation, and certificate issuance, verification and return of certificates, key revocation services, and other services associated with PKI that vendors bundle into their products. Note that PKI can increase the capabilities of an organization to protect its information assets, as it provides authentication, integrity, confidentiality, authorization, and non-repudiation. Note that hybrid systems are using two different encryption methods. Diffie-Hellman provided the foundation for subsequent developments in public key encryption. This slide provides a visual of hybrid encryption. Compare this to the symmetric and asymmetric slides you saw earlier. While modern crypto systems can certainly generate unbreakable ciphertext, that is possible only when the proper key management infrastructure has been constructed and when the crypto systems are operated and managed correctly. Email security utilizes Secure Multipurpose Internet Mail Extensions, or SMIME, which builds on the Multipurpose Internet Mail Extensions encoding format by adding encryption and authentication via digital signatures based on public key crypto systems. When addressing and securing the web, note secure socket layers, SSL, and use of secure hypertext transfer protocols as common methods to encrypt or secure website or web pages. Also, Secure Shell. It provides security for remote access connections over public networks. IP security is the primary and now dominant cryptographic authentication and encryption product when you're talking about IP protocol security. It combines Diffie-Hellman's key exchange, public key cryptography, bulk encryption algorithms, and digital certificates. IPsec does have two components, the IP security protocol itself and the Internet Key Exchange. IPsec and other cryptographic extensions to TCP/IP are often used to support a virtual private network, or VPN, a private secure network operated over a public and insecure network. Kerberos keeps a database containing the private keys of clients and servers that are in the authentication domain that it supervises. Kerberos also generates temporary session keys, that is, private keys given to the two parties in a conversation. Good tips on managing cryptographic controls include don't lose your keys, know who you're communicating with. Remember that every crypto system has a weakness. Remember that there's no security in obscurity, and that these systems are still configured and installed by humans. So again, they have their weaknesses. In summary, do note the key concepts on this page of identification, authentication, authorization, and accountability. Remember the three criteria that biometric technologies are evaluated on: false reject rates, false accept rates, and crossover error rates. Remember the types of firewalls that we spoke about and their architectural implementations. Remember the difference between a signature-based IDPS and a statistical anomaly-based IDPS, or behavior-based. Remember the difference between symmetric, asymmetric, and hybrid encryption, and the use of PKI and digital certificates. Also remember when securing the web, how we can use secure socket layers, secure hypertext transfer protocol, secure shell, and IP security. This ends the week 7 presentation. Please take this knowledge to go on and complete your discussion forums and your assignments for the week. Have a great week.